What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me have some more RPG horror stories. Speaking of RPGs, I need to try some proper homebrew. Like actually try to put my best foot forward and have my homebrew out there to be criticized. I made some homebrew here and there, but I mostly just use it for my games or use it on private and stuff. But I feel like I need to step out into the proverbial limelight. It's not really much of a limelight. I just need to throw my stuff out there and have it be criticized, destroyed, ruined, eviscerated, so I can become better homebrew writer. Is that what you call it? Homebrew writer? You're not like a home brewer. I guess a homebrew writer would be it. And even then, writer would be kind of laughable to put on a title. More like a homebrew idiot. That's my title. I'm a homebrew idiot. Hi, Tales Tomorrow here. Homebrew idiot extraordinaire. Nevertheless, I'm gonna still contemplate on this whole title and ideas and stuff, and I'm gonna get to the first RPG horror stories for today. You're not supposed to portray women like that, the male player says to the female player. In early 2001, I joined a Warhammer fantasy game module called Enemy Within. Enemy Within is a very long, very difficult campaign, and I was excited to finally find a dedicated group who would want to run it on Sunday nights, because at the time, that's the only time I could do. I decided to play a Bretonnian thief, and then later promote into spy named Nanette. Nanette had taken a lot of inspiration from Safana from Baldur's Gate, but of course to a low degree. This is tolerable, such as instead of being overly sensuous, she would be confident in her beauty, value treasure, and maintain her beauty. Personally, Safana is my favorite character because of her confidence and had been inspired to me for at least 10 years. Instead of being sensual, I would have Nanette admire her own beauty and care about her appearance as well as regale with the tales of exploits and lovers. The party: Nanette, me, vain Bretonnian jewel thief. Male player offended by feminine expression, played a female Kislevian knight who believes that women should be tomboys in tabletop. Jory, GM who was weirded out by the Masha's picking on me as well. Fabienne, Tillian scout, also subject of Masha's ire. Before I joined, I'd scrolled up and seen that Masha had said he didn't want me to join as he felt two women in the party would be awkward because he felt that it would ruin the aesthetic. What aesthetic? Women are not for aesthetic purposes, is what I had wanted to say, but instead created my character. Wait, hold on. I need to reread that. Aesthetic? Like, oh, the party like has the one female character, and that's like the bid. If they have two female characters, oh no, the horror. They have two women instead of one. The horror. I just don't get it. I genuinely don't get the aesthetic comment. Maybe it's beyond me. Maybe, I don't know. It could be potentially that like Masha is thinking of a specific archetype of a party, and what they're assuming and what they're kind of thinking of like the fantasy best party possible is that they should be like only one singular chick at the party and everybody else should be some sort of gruff dude. I don't know. I have no idea what they mean by aesthetic. This is just the most vagueness that I can possibly think of. They just want to have specific party composition of specific, I guess, amount of women and men on the team. I don't know. I'm trying to untangle this spaghetti noodle type of thinking and stuff because it just doesn't click to me. Maybe somebody else can explain it to me. Everything was fine, and I generally avoided Masha until session 2 when we had formally met Fabienne. Fabienne had asked, thankfully, to kiss my hand, jokingly admiring the beauty my character constantly speaks of. We'll laugh at the table before Masha rudely interjects and says, "Why are you whoring yourself out to this stranger? We have work to do." Before I even had a chance to say yes or no to the offer. Everyone just kind of went quiet before I just ignored him and tell Fabienne no. After the session, GM had pulled Masha aside, scolding him before next week against my wishes. Apparently Jory had a zero-tolerance policy for in-game and out-of-character sexism towards another player, which I didn't know about. Masha had seemingly changed and since apologized until I had reached Altdal. I'm gonna mispronounce a lot of these Warhammer names and stuff, so honestly, yeah, sorry, not sorry, I'm not gonna be able to pronounce them correctly. However, kudos on the DM to step up to the plate as soon as I notice something weird going on the table. This is good DMing, very good DMing. A DM that's actually on top of it. Notice some sort of animosity is happening that is bleeding across character potentially or player, and is actually making a point to put their foot down and say this behavior is not okay. I appreciate that. We need to have a lot more DMs that's stepping up to the plate like that. At the end of the day, I feel like that's one responsibility of the DM is just to make sure they can manage the players in particular and tell them when something is not okay at their table. Establish boundaries, establish rules, and maintain those rules. It's kind of important for the DM to do that. After fighting a blight wizard, Nanette's hair had become slightly charred by Jory's description, even jokingly, and had decided to use her own money to purchase a hairbrush and then take a hot bath. After I told the party my intent to downtown in Aldolf, Masha had an absolute meltdown. Why are you portraying women like that? No girl is like that. And the girls that are usually die in Warhammer or are assaulted to death. Wait, so girls aren't allowed to come back from adventure, buy a hairbrush in order to, take care of their hair, and then take a warm, relaxing bath after an adventure? What? Why is Masha deciding what girls should or shouldn't do? It's up to the player to decide what their character does. And at the end of the day, it's just weird for the player to start saying, that's not what women do. What do you mean? Let the player choose what they want to do as their character. The comment about, it's not what women do, is also going to be as ridiculous as saying, it's not what men do. Doesn't matter what women or men or whoever does. Let the player do what the character wants to do and just decide that their character just has a little bit of downtime and relaxation. God forbid we can't have hairbrushes and baths in the Warhammer fantasy universe. God forbid. It feels like Masha is just kind of crossing a line specifically, that he has a specific idea that this is how tomboy women would be in his gritty realism. And suddenly when somebody's not playing as a gritty tomboy, suddenly it's like, no women would ever do that, which is absurd for a man to claim. To which, massaging my temples, I respond, how are you going to tell me how to portray a woman as a man? GM then muted Masha and then kicked him from the game and Discord, apologizing profusely before they end the session there for the week. Masha, not done with the drama, joins the Discord on an alt along with 2 others and decided to spam me, calling me whore, fat, and ugly. What sort of high school nonsense is this? How old is this Masha player? How old is the group in general? Please tell me you guys aren't you 20s or God forbid 30s or God forbid 40s and stuff. Oh my god. It's like a petulant child trying to bully somebody. You know what it sounds like? It sounds like those movies, high school bullies that write on desk and stuff, write mean stuff on your desk and everything, just try to make you feel bad, or write something in the stall like Becky is a blank or something in a bathroom stall or something just to bully somebody. It sounds so high school, so pedestrian. In fact, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing for a grown man to do this. This is embarrassing. I'd found it mildly amusing, posting screenshots I'd taken on Masha's previous rantings about me, how he wants to be the only woman before he is kicked. I will never understand how a man can tell a woman how she should act, should behave in a roleplay setting, what their core principles should be. Masha, if you're reading this, just know that not every girl wants to swing a sword, drink beer, act snarky, or roleplay being a lesbian like you. As for the game, we're still going strong. I was the only one who suggested to post this just so I can vent this out of my system. Now, whenever we meet a female NPC, there's always a slight bit of laughter because we know it would make Masha furious. Masha is trying to find a particular type of game where their character can be the only woman at the table, I guess, or the only woman in the party just so they can, I don't know, be the only tomboy and stuff. And God forbid somebody else decide to play as a non-tomboy. It's weird. It's a really weird story, honestly. I think Masha just has a specific art type that they're pinning for when they're making their character, and they're focusing too much about they're trying to make their character the pick-me of the party by just being an asshole, just an asshat, just IRL as themselves. It's listen, doesn't matter how you think somebody else is role-playing their character, let them role-play the character. Everybody's having fun. Let them role-play the character. God forbid a character wants to take a bath after having their hair scorched a little bit. God forbid. It's really stupid how other people police each other on how they're role-playing and stuff, especially mid-game, especially when it's doing nothing harmful. It'd be one thing if OP was doing something that physically made Masha not be able to play in-game, they're trying to screw them over, steal their stuff, or constantly screw them over, or poison them in something, doing something harmful to their characters so that their character can't actually do anything. The OP is just literally minding their business and describing their character having a bit of downtime, or role-playing themselves in how they want to role-play their character and stuff, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Role-play a character however you want to, as long as it doesn't ruin other people's fun or gets in the way of other people being able to role-play their character and stuff. It's one thing, let's say for example, if somebody just constantly interrupts the entire party, and I've been in that situation where somebody comes in, their entire roleplay is they get to talk over everybody else, they get to interrupt the party, and nobody gets to make any decisions and stuff, and you kind of roll from there. It just doesn't feel good. But in this situation, OP did nothing wrong. This is dumb. This is dumb. Let's continue. How to kill a DM's joy in one sentence. I was talking to some friends recently, and they reminded me of this little horror story that happened at the beginning of the pandemic. During the early days of quarantine, myself and one of the roommates threw ourselves into playing D&D online with our friends multiple times a week as a way of socializing. We'd already been playing the same campaign for years, we're just doing more of it because we almost never left our house. A few months ago, our other roommate, who really been suffering with cabin fever and being separated from her other friends, asked if we could do all something together, almost like a family game night at the house. Don't remember who suggested we have a home D&D campaign, but we were all into the idea. I've been playing with Roommate 1 for years, and I've played with Roommate 2 before, and it had gone pretty okay. The Roommate 2 did have a tendency to not really get it. I'm not sure how to describe it, but you just never immerse yourself into the game or setting. But you saw how into the game me and Roommate 1 were, and she wanted to have that kind of fun with us. It was decided that Roommate 1 would DM while me and Roommate 2 would play. She told us we'd be playing in a light-hearted modern fantasy setting, with some spooky elements. We both made characters, and Roommate 2, who I'll now refer to as Furbog, seemed really excited about it. We had 2 sessions. First was a simple setup session where our characters met and were subjected to a spooky happening in a building we both lived in. It was honestly a really creepy and well done set piece, and I could tell how proud the DM was with it. Session 2 picks up after we fought off the monster. We discovered what was causing it, and put an end to the mystery. Our eccentric landlord then offered our characters free rent if it helped her protect the building from more spooky magic. I was having a really good time at the first session. It seemed like Furbog was too. At the end of the second session, I was invested in tying off all the loose ends in the first mystery and getting ready for the second. And the Furbog said something like, "So, we're just going to be solving problems in the apartment building?" The DM said something like, "Well, at the beginning, yeah." Which is when Furbog laughed and said, "That's kind of stupid." Ooh. Okay, well, at the end of the day, yes, like some of the quests are kind of dumb and kind of silly and kind of stupid, and part of it is that can be. D&D can be whatever you want it to be. If you want D&D to just be a big cheese maze where you're running around cheese maze, yeah, you're more than welcome to. If you're walking around and doing some epic storylines, yeah, it could be that as well. D&D is what you make it. D&D is what you make it and what you run it and what the idea is. It doesn't have to be all like grand adventure fighting liches and dragons. Sometimes just saving an apartment building is more than enough, you know, as a start, and it can kind of build from there. I don't think it's a bad idea necessarily and stuff, but I think maybe the Furbog player was just kind of imagining D&D to be this grand big quest adventure where we go and fight goblins and monsters and undeads and go to villages and stuff. Perchance, maybe the expectation for them was kind of, you know, a little more grand than just helping stuff around the apartment building. But them being so blunt about it, saying that's kind of stupid, ooh, like, that would hurt. Dude, that would sting. That would sting. If a lot of players was like, "Oh, this quest, we just do this?" Oh, that's dumb. It's like, okay, just don't play. What about putting all this work into? Anyway, let's see how this ends. I saw all the joy leave DM's eyes. What is wild to me is that we have a session 0. DM explained what sort of campaign it would be, with smaller stakes and quirky horror comedy feel. Furbog agreed to all that, but I guess she didn't really understand it. Tried to pipe in at the time and say I was enjoying the game, but also ask what sort of game Furbog wanted to play then, if not this. I said we could shift things a little and make something work. She never gave a solid answer, just reiterated that this campaign, which she agreed to play, was dumb. I feel like your Furbog player is just one of those people that doesn't understand how to say things politely and is a very blunt person. They just need to get their thoughts across bluntly and just out there and just like, it's like dropping a brick on somebody, basically. They just gotta get it done. There's no tact about what they say. I think maybe your player is just really tactless, potentially, perhaps, perchance. That, or maybe this is just a genuine response after 2 sessions and stuff and just say this is kind of dumb. Sometimes people are like that. They're a little bit too honest, a little too blunt to a fault. Man, the tact would have helped greatly to soften, you know, expressing something like, maybe I don't like it, maybe it's just not for me, instead of just saying this is dumb. Because just because you dislike it doesn't mean it's dumb. I think it's kind of a neat idea, honestly, and OP, I mean, to say this now doesn't make sense. If you ever find this in several years after you posted it, it's not a dumb idea. I don't think, if you're putting a lot of work into it and you're having fun with it, it's not dumb. It's fun, and you should continue doing it if you want to, regardless of what sort of grand or small adventures you're running. Also, even if it is dumb, who cares if it's dumb? Who cares if it's cringe? Dude, I live my life free from having cringe just stop me. I just allow myself just to be cringe. I'm a dumb tiefling on the internet that dances around with a little fake book that doesn't have anything written on it, talking to an imaginary audience that I physically can't see, because the only thing I see is the projection of the screen, stories on this side, and OBS recording all this stuff all together. Yes, what I'm doing is dumb. What I'm doing is cringe. Do I care? Not really. I'm cringe, but I'm free. I'm free of the mortal coils and mortal sufferings and these mental chains, these social chains that bind all of us. I broke the pact with cringe. I just accepted it. Anyway, there's nothing wrong with your campaign being dumb. If you're having fun, you're having fun. Do what was fun for you. Who cares what some other player thinks? Suffice it to say, we did not end up with a house D&D game. TM actually felt discouraged from ever running a game again since she put so much work into this one. It was heartbreaking to see and disappointing since I've been really enjoying her story. We never played in a game with Furbog again after that. Furbog is just not a kind of player that is really probably good to have at the table. They're gonna be this blunt and honest. I mean, at the end of the day, it was something, yes, you're gonna have moments where things are going a little bit dumb in a D&D game. That's the fun of it. It is silly make-believe that we're playing together and stuff. It is dumb, but that's the beauty of it. It's dumb and fun and great, and a lot of creativity is being put into it, and everybody's improvising the silly dumb little characters and stuff. Hell, my favorite parts about D&D is when things do get a little bit dumb and silly. When I get to play as my local cleric Nyazu, and I get to walk around, do this here voice and stuff, and talk to people in this voice, and his pudgy little feet are squeaking around everywhere and stuff, or we'll walk around and saving some fake creatures from some sort of other monstrosities and stuff, because it's a silly little like Bambi type of storyline that Mary's running or something. I don't know. I like when D&D gets dumb and silly. That's my favorite part, when D&D is super silly, when we just get to do silly little things and get to be silly little guys and cast silly little spells and get to do silly little shenanigans together. My favorite part about it is when it's not serious, but when it's silly and a little bit dumb, where everybody can have a little bit of silly fun. Furbolg is just not the kind of player that is cut off for D&D, because I don't think they'll be able to be polite enough to just not say when something is dumb. Things are gonna be dumb in a campaign, and there's nothing wrong with it. Accept the cringe, accept the dumb, live with the cringe. Listen, if I can conduct my D&D sessions fully aware that some of the stories are cringe and dumb, and not be afraid of it, so can everybody else. Be cringe or be dumb, but be free of the chains that bind you to not want to play. Anyway, let's get to the next story for today. Nah, you can't do that. This isn't Critical Role. Hey folks, I've been thinking for a while on how to construct this, but we'll see how this goes. A few years ago, I joined a D&D Discord community with a rather interesting concept, where people would make a character, get it verified by an admin, and then you look out on the DM notice board where you sign up and then do your adventures with a bunch of people and gradually level up over time. I'd done a few adventures prior and had a really good time. Made some friends, had a good few sessions. Was still very new to D&D and at the time, and I wasn't yet savvy with local groups, etc. This takes place just as my Dragonborn War Cleric hit level 2, and me and a few other players take up a job to investigate a goblin cave that is harassing a local village. First thing I noticed about the DM was that he was a very short-tempered. He didn't have patience with the more new players and tried to hurry the group along with decisions. Eventually, after a rather rushed introduction, reached the goblin cave, which to our surprise was crudely fortified. So we all huddled up and tried to decide on how to best go around it. This went on for about 10 minutes before a voice cut in. Right, I'm going to the store and we'll be listening in. If you all don't have a plan by the time we get back, I'll end this session and find another group who will. And on his word, the DM muted himself. Needless to say, the tension and awkwardness we all felt was really bad. So under pressure, me and the new guys came up with a crude plan and thought, screw it. And here we go. Pause. For your DM to say, right, I'm going to the store. And if you guys can't come up with a plan, I'm gonna end the session and find somebody else who will. That is either your DM is just kind of one of those gruff and tough people that means well, but just says things the most blunt way possible, but are actually okay kind of person, or is a little bit of a dickbag, because who just says that? Who just says, and if you don't come back with a plan, I'll shut the session down. What? You got players that want to play, that think a little bit too hard, and sure, yeah, they shouldn't be just bantering back and forth for like 10 minutes and stuff. It shouldn't take 10 minutes to come up with a plan. Sure, understandable. But to give them an ultimatum that you're going to the store and back and gonna listen to this session, and if they don't come up with anything by the time you're back, you could just close the session down. It's very antagonistic for no reason in the slightest. There's nothing wrong with saying, guys, let's just pick a decision and let's just go from there. We've been talking for 10 minutes. Let's just go. DM shouldn't be threatening to shut the session down and end the session and just run it for somebody else who wants to join in. Unless you were like running one of those high anxiety, high pressure games where it's like, are you sure you want to go with this plan? If you choose a bad plan, you'll get screwed over kind of thing. I don't know what sort of game you guys are running and stuff, that I can only assume that you're running just like a regular ass game and stuff, and it's just taking you guys 10 minutes to come up with a plan. Sometimes it's best not to overthink things, especially if you're going to be playing at level 2, and just go at it. Go with gusto, you know? Of course, not do something dangerous and stuff. I'm just saying 10 minutes of planning is 10 minutes of planning, and that's taken out from the session and everything. As we mainly expected it to be a trap, luckily due to me having a shield as well as the other fighter and the speed of the monk, we managed to get through it. Eventually came upon this grand opening in the cave, where the goblins had this sort of altar guarded by these weird beasts, and so the combat ensued. we handled it pretty well. However, things turned a bit sour when I was one-on-one with one of the beasts. Those who know war clerics, we have the ability War Priest, which lets us use up to a wisdom modifier, a bonus action as an extra attack. How the frick are you doing that? He shouted. I calmly explained. Through this didn't seem to pacify him, and he went as far as to get an admin in chat to confirm what I was saying. Found this, he asked the staff to keep an eye on me. Keep an eye on you for playing a war cleric, even though this is a feature you get at level 1? What? DM doesn't know that? Okay, I may sound a little pretentious, and I apologize if I sound a little teensy-wincy bit pretentious and stuff. If you're gonna be running a West Marches campaign with a bunch of people joining willy-nilly, like this game is kind of sounding like it is, a bunch of players are playing on a single server, and everybody signs up to a quest the DM is putting up and everything, sounds very much West Marches-esque, then you should at least, I feel like a bare essential, bare minimum, if you're gonna be running up levels 1 through 3 at least, you should know what each class and subclass does, or somewhat knows what it does at first level. I don't know, man, maybe it's just me, but I tend to get bored sitting around editing some videos for Tales Tomorrow and everything, and I end up just sometimes scrolling through and reading a bunch of abilities and a bunch of features from every single class and subclass and stuff, just to see what kind of things I can miss or relearn and stuff. There's a lot of cleric domains out there, there's a lot of druidic circles out there, there's a lot of rogues, there's just a lot of subclasses in general, and depends on if your game allows third-party stuff, this can be even more there. Knowing the general base essentials of at least what everything does from 1st to 3rd level, I feel like is kind of paramount. Like DM could just little Google that, be like, Warcaster, what is that? Oh, there's this feature, that's what it does. Okay, you have this feature. Instead of requesting a DM to be there to monitor the player or something, as if the player's trying to cheat or something. For anybody that needs to know, yes, a war domain allows a cleric as a bonus action up to the wisdom modifier to basically make a melee attack as a bonus action. It's a very simple, very direct, very simplified way to give yourself a little bit of a multi-attack. It's up to wisdom modifier too, so it's not like you can use that a bunch of times anyway. Honestly, I feel like war domain cleric could really benefit from just getting an extra attack at some point at some capacity, but that's just me, man. That's just me. I think it'd be cool if war domain clerics just straight up got extra attack instead of this little tacked on feature. Is that a little bit too much of me to think that they deserve an extra attack? Maybe, but let's continue with the story regardless. I shrugged it off, and we got to the end of the dungeon where we began to investigate the altar, to which this angel-like figure descends to face us and told us to forgive the wrongdoings of others in order for us to truly be enlightened. What? With everyone confused, I decided to inquire and ask that with my acolyte background and time spent in temples, would I know who this angel represents? His response was as follows. Buddy, this ain't Critical Role. I don't know what you mean. I'm trying to ask if my character's knowledge about spending time in temples and such. Would I know what deity they represent? Look, you would have zero idea about this, so stop asking and just listen. This isn't Critical Role. What? Hold on, this sentence doesn't make sense. Shut up and listen. This isn't Critical Role. You talk about like asking if your character would know something? Rolling checks? Seeing if your background feature actually works? Utilizing a background feature to see if that stuff actually... I feel like this is the kind of DM that just wants to regurgitate the story at you and not engage with it in the slightest because they don't want to answer any of the questions and stuff. What is that? It's not Critical Role. That doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. You can't just say things where and just have it not make sense and just be like, I'm not going to elaborate any further. This is a critical... What part of Critical Role? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Like asking questions is Critical Role? What? Has my game been Critical Role the whole time? This is dumb. This is just a really dumb response from a really dumb DM. But let's see how this ends. That was it. I just sat quietly, let him finish his huge ass monologue about morals before the session ended. Usually you stay behind and offer comments for the DM, but I just left. I felt so put down by the encounter that I just left the server. Luckily, I never give up with D&D, and I've found far better people and had far better experiences. Glad I didn't give up, but holy crap, that was a real trial by fire. Not really much of a trial by fire. The session just kind of stank. I mean, the DM made it stink because they just wanted their super awesome DMPC to regurgitate like paragraphs of monologue for no reason. Whenever you decide, would I recognize this because of my background? The response is, this is a Critical Role. If asking questions makes it Critical Role, then I guess every normal game is Critical Role now because we're putting this stupid dumb standard on everything. Asking questions, asking if you can make a history check or religion check to recognize recognize something in a game, or nature check to recognize something, or any other check in the slightest to see if you can recognize anything at all from your background or otherwise, barely makes every game critical role. Good job, everybody that's running decent game. Good job, everybody that's just running regular games where players can make checks to recognize stuff with all critical role, apparently. That is, I've seen some dumb things be said, but this takes the cake. This really takes, this is one of the dumbest things I've read somebody ever say ever in an RPG horror story. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.